Right, this afternoon, gentlemen, we've got Jeff McGregor in from Wonks. So it's not a long story. I don't know Jeff personally, but Mr. Russell connected me with him and they actually went to intermediate school together.
We did.
Is that correct? Okay. So Jeff is the owner and CEO of Wonks, and going to take you through a fairly full-on afternoon around social media, the analytics behind it, getting it set up as well. So a lot of areas I have absolutely no understanding of, so it's going to be a huge learning curve for me as well. So I do have his slideshow before anyone asks, so I've already got that, I've had a look at it, there's a lot on there. The session is being recorded as usual, so that'll go up to the YouTube channel at some stage this week, so you're more than welcome to take notes, and obviously hopefully we'll have some time for a bit of Q&A. Now, I know the bell, based on this ridiculous new rule and rainy day, is supposed to go at 3 o'clock. As far as I'm concerned, we have until 3:10. None of you actually need to get away before then because you'd have been here till then anyway. So if the session does go till 3:10, you will be okay. All right, it's only just gone 1:30, so you've essentially had your full lunchtime anyway. We have this weekday thing where we shorten everything by 10 minutes. The buses are still coming at the same time. Okay, any questions, any issues?
My day by 10 minutes, that'd be great.
Yeah, it would be, eh? Questions, issues, comments? We're good, can everybody see? Okay, the floor is yours.
Fantastic.
Go for it.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. I'm good. What, a week left to go before holidays? Is that right?
Yes. 3 days.
Yep. 3 days. Oh, Joyce. You guys will be happy about that. Okay, cool. And when do you have exams?
Next term.
Next term. So those are your mock exams, and then you have the ones at the end of the year.
No, we had them all. No, we
So I was the last year that did School C, so the NCEA side of things was a bit different for me. But then again, I went to school 20 years ago, so I don't feel old. But then when I come and speak to young men like yourselves, it sort of translates that maybe I am. So I'll go through the slides. I don't normally use slides, normally I just talk off the cuff. I find that to be a lot easier. It's not something that most people can do, but at the end of the day, it's a little bit more engaging to talk to you directly than simply have that. And as Mrs. Russell said to you, you'll be able to get the slides afterwards anyway, so if you've got any questions around those, you can come back to me on that. So I'm going to talk about web analytics and marketing. Before I do, I'll just give you a bit of a brief on my business and how I've gotten to this point. And then I'll talk about the products, the original product that I had, and then the product that we have today, and then that will feed into what the digital marketing stack looks like in order to advertise your business in the modern era, and where you should go to moving forward. Before I do that though, are you working in groups for your businesses, or are you individualised companies?
Both.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go around the room just so I get an understanding of what it is that you're doing. So,
day packages that basically enhance their day-night experience.
to the which market? Tourism market, day-night packages for?
Middle-aged couples.
Okay, but what do they get to do? What's the?
So they get a box sent to their house, and which contains like envelopes and activities for them to do throughout their like restaurant day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that all three of you? No.
All different.
Okay. What do you got to know?
I have a business partner, Sam, but he's not here today. And we are trying to put together a sort of school program where students can sort of semi enter the workforce. So if you're an accounting student, you can take on the admin work of like a small local business and get paid to do that and get real experience. And that benefits like the community, the small local business, student, and school.
Okay.
And we're trying to make it somewhere like that.
So you're B2C, you're B2B. What do you do, mate?
I have a business partner as well, Tess, just over there. Our business is called Feed, which we provide alternative to lunches for kids. So target market is parents, middle-aged, aged between 20 to 65, looking either between 1 to 3 kids at primary school, somewhere in the North Shore. We provide lunches that if parents that are healthy and beneficial to their kids.
Cool, cool. So Betsy as well. Gentlemen, step it together.
Oh, we're separate. Mine's a fashion marketplace, like C2C. And yeah, just New Zealand, Australia, pretty much.
Okay, cool.
Mine's just t-shirts pretty much. Just working on some designs, getting printed.
Okay, so retail. Yep.
Me and my business partner are working on a fishing utensil that enables fishers to easily unhook fish without damaging the mucus outside of them.
Okay, cool. Guy heading around the corner. Are you in the same group, are you?
Together we run an online vintage market.
Oh, okay. Yep, sorry, yep.
Yep.
It's like an online vintage clothing store called Charter Club.
Cool, cool.
Yeah, I'm working on an environmental certification standard for restaurants, which allows consumers to make environmentally conscious decisions about where they eat.
Okay, so is that more sort of governmental then, to get that regulation, that standard?
Potential for that,
Yep.
but at the moment not yet.
Okay.
I provide original Japanese JDM cards from the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s for the customers.
Okay, cool. So miniature,
No,
or
like
actual full-on
actual-
cards, full-on Japanese
Yeah,
imports. Oh, man, cool.
Me?
Yep.
I'm a bit behind everyone else here, but I'm creating a startup that looks to provide woven belts to men ages 20 to about 59.
Okay, cool, cool. Retail, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Link a music tutoring service, and it's going to be a franchise, and it provides high quality music tutoring to school students after school.
Okay, cool, cool.
I'm the head boy here at Westside Boys, and I'm working in cooperation with the other head students from across the other 13 high schools on the shore. We're building a non-profit to connect all the schools on the shore and get to be more collaborative with that.
Awesome, awesome. Congratulations on being the head boy. It was never going to be in my future when I was young, but definitely come to respect that in hindsight.
I'm making a technology support app to help old people understand the devices a bit more.
Okay, cool.
I'm doing music events for people who are interested in hip hop and rap for all ages.
Yep. Okay, great. And your partner, yeah. Okay, so that's a pretty good range of services. There's nothing in there that's like a tech stack, is there? There's nothing in there that you're building apps or anything along those lines? Yours is, okay, and yours is,
Mine
okay.
use an app.
Okay, cool. So that gives me a bit of an understanding as to where you guys are at. I think it's really awesome that the program is available to you. It's not something that we had when we were back in the day, and so I think that you're definitely ahead of the curve. When we talk about sort of a little bit about me, I'm about to turn 37 in September, which, as I said, for me seems sort of old, but at the same time isn't. I grew up on the North Shore. I went to Takapuna Grammar and went to Glenfield Intermediate, and now I live in Hatfields Beach, which is quite nice. Growing up on the shore in the 90s was nothing like it is today. There was no Albany. There was all chickens on the road type scenario. And so where I live now, it's quite rural, even though I get to live in Oriel, Silverdale. So bring up my kids, it's a nice area to be in. So I've been married for 10 years, 15 years with my wife in total. So her name's Jade, and then I have a 9-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. So just on that family side of things, I also referee senior club rugby, so I give back to the community, and that's something that I did out of, my dad would take me to the rugby. One time I got drunk and mouthed off and said that I could be a referee, and I like to do what I say I'm going to do. There's no point saying something in life if you're not going to back yourself for it, otherwise it's just a big mouth type individual. So the following Monday the man said to me, you've got to come to show up to the meeting, and so I did, and then I became a referee off the back of that, did junior boys and came up the grades. So I did 6 years of that while I was at university, and that set me in a really good place to be in business later, because what it allowed for me to do was to learn man management, and obviously when you're dealing with younger boys, that's not really so much. But then I moved to Wellington and did 2 years in Horowhenua, and there's just not enough referees, so by decree you become a senior referee, so I was dealing with men. And one of the key things I remember is I made a mistake and I got something wrong on the field, and then I tried to rectify that mistake. And you can't do that. You've just got to swallow your pride, swallow that you made the mistake, and then move forward. You try to balance the ledger at a later date and time. You're doing a disservice to the other team, or you're doing a disservice to yourself. You haven't taken that learning. And so throughout that 6 years of maybe 15 games a year that you're doing, I didn't really understand what was happening. Then I did the 6 years, my first 6 years of business, and what I came to realise was that a lot of the learnings that I'd gotten out of it, those Monday meetings, obviously as a player you do 2 trainings a week, we have a Monday meeting, but also the law, and then, as I said, just that man management and how I was dealing with people on the field, and then how I did it before the game. So arrive an hour early, be prepared, know what the ground looks like, what are the teams, where are they at on the table, getting all of that diligence behind me, approaching the managers, making sure I've got my pre-game sorted, have the game, and then after the game, always go into the losing team sheds, right? That would be my approach, because even though I got called some pretty foul words at East Coast Bays on Saturday, and they won, nevertheless, you don't learn much about yourself if you're not prepared to have those challenging conversations. And so when I went back to refereeing, what I came to realise was actually now my business career from the past 6 years is able to influence the refereeing that I'm doing. So a lot of people say, why do you referee? And that it must be a difficult thing. For me, I love refereeing. It's great. I have good rapport with the players on a Saturday. I have a couple of beers with the players and at the clubhouse afterwards as well. And I've been doing it long enough now that the managers and the coaches know who I am. So if you find the thing that's good for you and to give yourself more back to the community, it in a roundabout way will reinforce a lot of what you're doing in your business career. And in fact, tonight when I talk, I'll be on Heather Duke's The Ellen Show. I pay for a 90-second slot every fortnight. It's at 5:52, and I'll be referencing this exact conversation that I'm having. I'll also talk about the sponsorship that we do. So we give $5,000 to the Referees Association each year, we give $6,000 to North Harbour Rugby, and we give $1,000 to each of the clubs within the North Harbour Union. So it's a total of about $23,000 that we spend each year on the sponsorship. And again, that's because there's no money in rugby anymore, players are declining, it's becoming an elite sport in North Harbour, and the clubs need that support. So that's something that I can do, but I think that giving just time, and that's really ultimately what it is. And even playing a sport is giving time, because you get spectators coming down and watching, and that's where a lot of the abuse comes from, and you've got to wonder why there's people quite happy to do that on the weekends, but they're not actually participating. Again, just letting that wash over you and not taking that into yourself, especially when you're a young businessman, you've got the risk on your shoulders, right? It's hard to get ahead already, so you're putting yourself up to be shot at. And so when someone's shooting at you, just deflect it. And I know it's not easy to do, and I've been in business for 13 years and I still get anxiety. I don't get so much the problems with people giving me grief. It's all internal. My internal monologue is imposter syndrome, and can I actually do this? And like it says there, I employed 27 people, 15 in New Zealand, 12 in the Philippines. We turned over $2.5 million last year. We've got a strong brand in the Auckland market. We're probably a strong brand across the country, to be honest with you. And we're expanding into the United States later this year and into the next year. When you read that, you could probably say objectively I'm successful. Right? I'm self-made. No money was given to me by my parents. I had a pretty wayward youth, to be honest with you. And so it's easy to look at someone and say, well, they're successful, so they've probably got it sweet, right? My philosophy is, I won't help a beggar on the street. With all due respect to beggars, there's plenty, especially in this country, there's plenty of welfare. You can get whatever you need. You can get a housing supplement, you can get the dole, you can get a job at the employment levels that are at the levels that they are at the moment, right? Who I will help is the CEO. Who I will give support to is the person who's at the top, because no one gives that person any support. They all expect that that person's already got it made. Yet they've got all the pressure, all the stress, all the heartache on their shoulders, as you do, gentlemen, as you're looking to do at the moment. And then you're fortunate that you're getting the help. You're getting the help through the school. But as I say in the next little bit here, how did I get my start? One of the things that I've talked about is friends who supported me and older mentors who trusted me and gave me guidance. So having each other, even in this room, is really important to be able to talk through those things, because as it is now, most of my peers are business owners. Just by virtue of over the years, it gets to that point. My wife's 8 years older than me, so inherently I must like older people. Most of my friends are all older than me. I was out at the rugby on Saturday night with my friend. He's 64 years old, so almost 30 years older than me. That's again probably just a byproduct of wanting to get ahead, and I think that by you guys being in this room, you want to get ahead. That's what you're wanting to do. I started my business career when I was about 23, 24. And the sooner you can do that, the better off you're going to be. My eyes were as wide as saucers. I left school and did an apprenticeship at an IT company, and still didn't really know what was going on. I went overseas for a month, came back, I was a bike courier. I don't recommend that. I lost 10 kgs in 4 weeks and was getting paid tuppence, but nevertheless, went to university, studied law and public policy down in Wellington, and I left and I'm 2 papers shy of my double conjoint degree. Much to my parents' chagrin, obviously they would have liked to have seen me get the piece of paper, and I do recommend that if you get a student loan of $45,000 like I did, most of that was actually on course-related costs, like not actual the fees, it was the living costs, and that's why you've got to make decisions about where you're going to actually put your money, because at the time it was like, oh yeah, I'll just get these loans, and then, oh yeah, they take a long time to pay off. So just make sure that you do complete it, but from my perspective, what I got out of university was the ability to put together a cogent argument and to get research. Okay, so that's the key thing that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to find as much information as you possibly can. When I was young, we had Encarta 96 was the CD you could plug in. We actually had full encyclopedias, 2 rows, there must have been like 30 in the volume. So we had a limited amount of information. You live in a world where you've got too much information. It's very difficult to separate fact from fiction, because everyone's got a hot take. Everyone thinks that they know what's going on, when that's not true at all. And so for you to actually get relevant information is intellectual property that someone else doesn't want to share. Right? Why would you share information that you've come about in a hard way, that you've learned, that you know gives you the edge? You're more reluctant to do that. So to find where the information is quite critical, right? And that's where, as I say, in terms of the university side of things, that was really quite useful. But one of the things that I did at university was work as many jobs as I could. I didn't have the support of family. I didn't, as I said, I had to take the cost as much as I could get from StudyLink. But I probably worked over 150 jobs. I was a bartender, I was a ditch digger, I fixed people's computers. I'd go to old ladies' houses to work in their garden, and they'd end up talking to me for an hour, and that was pretty sweet, because you get paid like 20 bucks an hour just to talk to an old lady, but you're learning lessons and the like. So all of those jobs gave me a really good background on how business would operate. Now get to a point where I just decided, if I'm going to do all these jobs, I might as well incorporate my business. So I might as well just start doing things the proper way, by incorporating the company's office, by actually having it registered with the IRD to pay GST. And I wasn't doing, at $60,000 I think it is how much you have to turn over in order for you to have to take GST. But, and can I just say this, when someone quotes you the GST inclusive price back to you and they don't want to pay, that person's an idiot. You take GST on behalf of the government. The government tells you to take the GST, you take it, you offset it against what your expenses were, and then you pay it to someone else. That's not your money. Your money is the subtotal amount. So when someone parrots that number back to you, you say, no, my costs this amount, I have to add 15% on top. It's a real frustration that I've had, and you almost always get that when people don't want to pay you, because they want to inflate the amount of money that they're saying is in dispute, right? But you're saying, no, I just want you to pay me this. Nevertheless, all of those different jobs gave me a really robust background to where I got to today. And it's similar to that rugby side of things, right? Just getting a whole smorgasbord of different inputs into who you are, being a jack of all trades but a master of none, right? That's really where it got to when I got to the point when I started the business. So when I did get to that point of starting the business, I'd been at university, and from a very young age I'd been told that I'd be the Prime Minister. People have continued to tell me that I'd be the Prime Minister. Why you'd want to be the Prime Minister, I don't know. You want to be the puppeteer behind the Prime Minister. You get all the power, but you don't get any of the grief, right? So that would be my place of where I'd go. And there's, if you look at the people behind the power, I think you can get a lot more information in life than if you're looking at the shiny trinkets that they're trying to put in your face. So again, that's really around that research piece, is don't take it on face value, drill into what it is that you're looking for. So I was living in Otaki, it's a town of 5,000 people just north of Wellington. Having grown up on the shore, to be in Otaki was quite a thing. There's a very myopic attitude in small town New Zealand about getting ahead, and then when trying to get ahead, they kind of want to cut you down, that tall poppy syndrome. When you're in a bigger city, you tend to be able to find there's a lot more energy, there's a lot more desire to get ahead. Nevertheless, I was living there, and I decided that I'd start selling websites. I've been doing all those different things, right? Doing all the computer repairs and digging dishes and the like. So I went to the local high school and I found a kid that could build websites, and so I started selling them. So I sold 2 websites and then found out that he couldn't build websites and that he was dyslexic. So I'll just take a side piece and just talk about my son for a moment. My son has mild autism, and evidently part of autism is there does appear to be a connection to dyslexia. So my son is a highly intelligent person, has really high concept thinking. The reason I asked about the cars is my son's into cars, Disney cars. He lines them all up, right? He's got that kind of fixation and things. Rather than shy away from the fact that he is dyslexic or has autism, we ask him to embrace it, not to use it as a crutch, but don't be afraid of your frailties or things that you're not great at, because there are other things which you are great at, but if you don't give license to the fact that actually you are a fully rounded individual, you're kneecapping yourself later down the track. And that's exactly what happened with that individual. I would have been able to help him, but because he never told us that he was dyslexic, what we saw was non-performance, not his inabilities. He was capable, and I'm sure at this point in time has a job as a fully functioning member of society, but he wasn't open with me. So anyway, so I'm in a situation where I've got to build these websites. So now I've got to figure out how to build websites. So I did. Poorly, I might add, but I did nonetheless. As I did that, what I discovered was Google was around. And when I started out, there were 20 Google partners in New Zealand. And they were all the big guys in town. You know, you'd expect the agencies and the like. So with them, I looked at that and I was like, okay, well, with all the research I'm doing about this website work, I sort of found that there was all this information about Google. You become Google certified. And I had a binder that I printed out. It was, probably 150 pages, type 8 Arial font. And it had all of the policies that you could do for Google, all of the different campaigns you could do. Then you could sit an exam and it locked your computer. And this was in the day where didn't have phones. You might have a flip phone or something, but there was no phone that you could probably use. So I had just the one computer. It locked your computer and you had to do a 3-hour test. I had to pay $50 to do it. These days, Google can't give it away fast enough because they want all of these people going and selling its product. And I'll get to Google in a minute. So I got the certification and I continued to do the research. Once I understood about the product side of things, and I'll talk about that in a minute, I started to research the neighbourhood, where I was in Otaki. Not great, 5,000 people, probably 200 businesses, 10 of them with takeaway shops. the rest of them would just say no money. This is not a good place to be starting a business. So make sure you identify where your market is when you're going to go and do that. Anyway, I think that what helped there was my wife had the job. So I earned no money and she had 2 jobs. Now, when people ask about my success, I always say it was because of my wife. And that's not something, first of all, you can't have my wife, gentlemen. She's a beautiful woman, but she's mine. And the second thing is that you can't tell someone that they should be in a committed relationship. It takes the other person to be in the relationship, and so if you can't force that in someone. But from my perspective, what has been an overriding success measure has been being in a committed and loving relationship. Not just because she financially supported us for the first couple of years, but because she gave me mental support. She gave me that support around, you have that vision, you know where you're going with it, you should back yourself. If you're by yourself, you don't really have that, whereas you've got someone who's guiding you along and helping you, you just get a lot further in life. And that's again with the friends who gave me support. And as I said, now I'm in a place where I've got those friends that I went to school with, and I've got the friends in my early 20s, but it is harder for them to understand what it is to be a business owner because they have jobs and they don't understand the pressures that go along with it. So when you do find people that have a common knowledge around what it is that you're doing and what you're experiencing in life, it does help because you can actually have an honest and real conversation about that. So mental visualization of success, I think, is a key thing for me as well. So in my head, I've always seen those stepping stones that I was going to go to. So I own my own home, I own an apartment up in Albany, I own the building that I'm in, I drive a nice car. Again, these are just material things, and I've come to realise that family and friends and your health and your mental well-being are more important than material things. But I'm assuming that you guys really have no assets, and so for you, having things and having it is really important, as it should be. You want to get ahead. But I see that in my mind, right? In my mind, I see the 50th franchise in the United States with my wife toasting a glass of champagne. Now, how long that takes, or if that even happens, is immaterial to the fact that I've seen it here. And that what I do day to day is working toward that. So that mental visualization in your mind of what success means to you, reinforce that, double down on that. When I like to go for a run, and when I go for every day I go for a run, when I go for a run, I think on what it is that I'm doing. Because then when you're back at your desk and you're doing your work, you don't have that time. That bandwidth is gone from you now, so you want to use that bandwidth when you can get it. And then take advantage of everything the government has to offer. You're taking advantage of what the school has to offer, which is fantastic. You're very lucky. But one of the things that I have made good use of is that in New Zealand, we are very, very fortunate. There are government agencies, as I said before, for the people at the lower end of society, but there's also government agencies for business people to tap into. So there are all manner of grants, and certainly for young individuals, young men like yourselves, there'll be a lot of support that's out there. You just need to ferret it out. What you've got to understand is that there's also a language that the people that give the money away have, right? They need it to be written in a certain way so that they can tick a box. We did some work with the government earlier this year. We were the largest provider to the Activate Auckland program in Auckland, and we more or less set up we call it a cookie cutter, but a production line of the way that we would be approaching it. When I'm dealing with someone commercially, a person that I'm actually selling to, not only do I have to really justify what it is that I'm selling, I can't just be like, hey, buy my thing, because they don't care. Right? I need to explain to them why this is going to be beneficial to their business. But they don't tell me how much their budget is. They keep that close to their chest, right? They want to do that bargaining, that negotiation that sits at the heart of a commercial sort of relationship. Government, they tell you what their budgets are. They tell you up front what you need to tell them. These people can't give away the money fast enough because it's not their money. So if you find grant applications that you can go through and you can figure out how to do it, do it. You might not always win, there might be criteria that's required, it might be in a position where there's only so much funding available to you, but there is funding available. And it's not just that, with NZTE, so if any of you are looking at export markets, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, they have a group of anyone can be a part of it. Once you move into what's called focus, not only are you eligible for some growth funding, although there's a lot of hoops that have to be gone through there. You've got to have cash flow projections, you've got to make sure that you've got a sound narrative story, but they have a research department. And I think the research department is pretty important, because if you're selling your product, let's just say you're selling your product at $10, and you're going into a foreign market, NZT will do the entire globe, but let's say you're going into a foreign market, you want to make the edge. So for example, when we go to America, currently the exchange rate is 62 cents. Right? It was 72 cents, and I was doing a lot better. I'm about 15% down on what my Filipino wages are. I pay that in US dollar. Right? If I was to sell at our standard rates, 162.50 US versus 162.50 New Zealand, I'm immediately making that extra 38% straight away. Right? So that's good. So if you sell yours for $10 in New Zealand, and then in the market you go to, they sell it for $10 there, you can sell it for $8 because you've still got the arbitrage, the exchange rate difference, so you can now undercut the market. But how do you know what the market is over there? You don't, right? Like, you don't know that it's $8 over there, and you might think it's $8, so you've got to be $8 too, but you will $10, you can be $8 too. So there's a range of information that you need to seek out, and there are government support that will help you do that, because we are a country at the bottom of the earth, gentlemen, as I'm sure you all know. We have 5 million people. It's so small. Basically, New Zealand is like Otaki to Auckland. And if you hear what I said about Otaki, it's, you know, it's not the best. The same is true here. So the New Zealand economy is going to be driven by exports, right? The more exports we have, the better off you're going to be. So if you've got an export-led product, the government loves you. They want more of what you've got to give. They will support you. They'll tap into that. And so it's still going to be on you to have to do it. However, what I would say is that look for those opportunities. Look for where the support lies to be able to get you ahead. Because if it's not you, it's someone else. It's already been appropriated. We already pay our tax for it. Okay? So, designing a product, building a company, right? So what was the problem that I was trying to solve? The number one thing that I discovered when looking at that Google product family is that no one cared about conversions. No one cared about what the end goal of what you were trying to achieve was, whatever your business objective was. So people were doing digital advertising because at that time, that's the newfangled thing. So you just did it. You spent money there. Whereas I'd look at that and go, well, hang on a minute, if I'm spending money, if you're a business owner spending money, don't you want a return? Where is closing the loop in terms of where your resources going? And no business, certainly not those top 20 ones, because they're making most of their money. Side note, TVNZ, if you place media with them, if you're the media buyer, you get a 10% rebate. If you place media with MediaWorks, or TV3, it's owned by Discovery now, or Sky, you get a 20% rebate. If you place money with Google, you get no rebate. If I'm a media buyer, what am I going to recommend you spend your money on? 20%. 20%, right? So when you look at the big media companies, and this is again, is do your research, look behind the shiny thing, look at where the power lies, look at why they're making the decisions that they make, and again, I'll talk to Google's point. You'll be able to see why people are pushing a particular agenda. And when it comes to media, they want to get their kickback. I don't get a kickback. So I was able to come in and disrupt that market because my money was made off of the consulting, the hour that we did. We'll do an hour for you. You pay me for that hour. You get an output. That's that. Right? So then we had to figure out how big the market was. Well, at that time, I didn't know about the government funding stuff. As I said, if I'd known, I might have tapped into a bit more research. I don't advise thinking that 5,000 people in Otaki is a market. My wife pulled me out of Otaki and back to Auckland, and when I got back here, I was like, oh, it's way easier when there's consumers to buy your stuff. So definitely make sure you know where you're going with that. Can you be copied, and does that matter? Right? Simple as that. So for me, I'm a big believer in, like I said before, about information and there being so much of it. You can paralyze yourself because of the fact there is so much. Whereas if you commoditize it down into a digestible chunk and sell that digestible chunk, people will buy it because it's inherently easier for them to absorb and understand, right? And so that, from my perspective, I'd put a lot of tutorial information out. I'd do a lot of explaining, and it would take ages to do, but I'd record videos on what analytics is, what ads is, how to increase your SEO ranking. And people would say, why do you do that? You're giving that away. And I'm like, well, actually, it's a honey trap, because people are watching this information, these tutorials, getting completely confused about what it is that I'm telling them. And my logo is the one that's in the lower right-hand corner. My phone number is the one that's there. And so I'm getting my brand out there. And then they're calling me because they're confused, but they think that I'm an authority in the product, as I am, because I've produced the content. Right? So content is important. Putting together those tutorials is important. And it depends on what it is that you're selling. But from my perspective, it didn't matter that someone could copy me, because I was going to be better anyway. And even to this day, the way that we commoditize our product line still hasn't been copied in New Zealand. People still sell what we do as a service, whereas I have it all commoditized. I know exactly how much labor component it costs per month. I know exactly how much resource I have, and then I know what my margin is. And it's all margin driven. I run a consulting business. If I do not have the right, if I've over-resourced, I've got too much people and I'm spending an extra 10 grand a month, that's just eroding my bottom line. If I haven't got enough people, I won't be able to sell as much, and therefore I won't make as much profit, right? So having an eye on the numbers is really critical, but also not being fearful that by putting information out there, someone might take it and copy it. Maybe they will, but then again, a lot of the influence on your product development has come from you reading about other people's information anyway, right? As I said, it's the hidden gems in the intellectual property that you want to go after. So brand, you really need to build a brand. And that's what I'm going to talk about with the stack, the tech stack that you're going to want to have. Brand is everything. And we all know this, Coke, Apple, all that sort of stuff. But on a smaller level, when we started doing radio advertising is quite expensive, so it's unlikely that you guys are going to be able to do that. It took me 8 years to get to the point where I could do radio advertising. I took a loan in order to be able to do it so that I could get active. We got like 3 leads a month. Turned on the radio advertising, 30 leads a month, straight away. People will call me and go, hey mate, I want to buy your product. All they've heard is my ad on the radio. They don't know how much it costs. It's incredible, the psychology of radio when people are driving their car, especially when it associates with Mike Hoskins, right? Largest radio show in the country. Love him or hate him, it doesn't really matter. People are tuning in. And so all they hear is my ad. Same thing in the drive show. So brand is important. You've got to remember that even though I sell digital advertising, an ad that flashes up on your screen is not brand. It can contribute to your brand, but your brand has to have multiple channel activations. People need to see it in multiple areas, be that in a flyer. People will say to me, print's dead. Print's not dead. The local Hibiscus Matters is the paper that we get up at our property. It'll stay on the bench for a couple of weeks, and then people will see the builder who's got an ad, they'll cut that ad out and put it on their fridge. And they're walking past that every single day in their house, and eventually they get to the point, oh, well, look at the builder, oh, look, here's Johnny. That is so much more impactful than a digital ad which was gone in a second. And so you've got to look at all channels. Not everything will work for your product, your company, but you need to test the waters on it. And as I say, I personally think that radio is one of the best marketing channels that you can get, as long as it's connected with the right market. So we, obviously with ZB being an older, although there's all these closet ZB listeners that are in their 20s and 30s that pretend that they don't listen to Mike Hoskins, but they do. So be wary of actually listening to what someone tells you versus market research behind the scenes. But if you're going for a retail scenario, maybe like a ZN might be better. That there might be a flavour or a different sort of brand activation and brand association is going to be better for you. So what are you pricing your product at? When I first started out, I charged out at, I think started at $40 an hour, and then I started charging $60 an hour, and I thought, $60 an hour? Crikey, that's good money considering I was getting paid $20 before when I was doing the student job search work. and there's a company called Toast. They used to be on Taharoto Road, now they're on Pirana Road. They're shareholders in my business. Met up with them after I came back from Otaki, and one of the things that I'll always be very respectful and thankful for is they treated me with respect. I would have been in my mid-20s, these guys were in their 40s, and I sat around the table with them having a few beers, and they listened to me, and they believed in me, and they said, right, let's have a bit of a joint venture. We've got clients who want what you're doing, so we'll take it together. And I said, okay, well, I'm charging $60 an hour. They said, $60 an hour? Mate, we're going to charge $200 an hour. I'm charging $60. I'm getting out of bed for 60. It's going to be $200. And I was sitting there going, no one's going to buy that. No one's going to pay for that. There's actually a trade-off at the point where I was undercutting myself at 60 because the market was happy to pay 175, 200, 250. When I'm coming and saying 60, people go, well, you're not very good. If you're pricing yourself at that place, why would we spend money with you, right? And so to learn actually what I should have been doing was to price myself at that higher level. You're not going to win every account. You want to get that pitch really right in that niche. You know, make sure you're making money. Try to be $1 less than the next guy. That's really where you want to be. From a joint venture point of view, that wasn't a joint venture. I did all the work and it was cut a third. Right? So eventually I got to the point where I was like, boys, thank you very much. I'm just going to take the clients that we had together. I want to absorb them into my business, and you guys don't get any more money out of it because they were getting an extra $1,000 a month or whatever it was, and they were laughing all the way to the bank. So just be wary when dealing with capital investment. They're going to come in and tell you that you've got the best idea since sliced bread, that you're amazing, that you're going to get ahead. And you're going to think to yourself, okay, this is going to be really good. And when it comes to the negotiation, they're going to tell you that it's worth 10 cents on the dollar, and they're going to try to take as much equity stake as they possibly can. And they're never going to do any work. You're going to do all the work. So just be very careful when someone comes in with something that sounds too good to be true, because it probably is. And if you can borrow money from the bank, and even though there's a bit more of a risk there, you're better off because that interest rate and that loan is eventually going to be paid off, and you own the 100% or whatever the percentages are. Someone's taken a big chunk of equity. You know, I was fortunate that they were actually good people, and they were only doing it as a bit of a laugh and to help me get ahead, and I took the lessons out of it, but I still think you need to be careful there. So, too cheap and it doesn't hold value, too expensive and it won't sell. How do you keep your costs low and drive toward profit? I was fortunate in 2017, I got invited to Sydney by Google, and they there were 2 other New Zealanders of the 10 of us, so there were 7 Australians, and we went through a series of business growth type strategies. And I said, well, one of the things I want to do is I want to outsource, right? So I want to send my work overseas. The boys down at Toast, they use some people in Sri Lanka. Very glad. Does anyone know what's going on in Sri Lanka at the moment? Well, for those that don't know, they've run out of money. They can't afford to buy petrol or gas, and people are starving. Their economy is dead, and they are in serious trouble. If I had my resource base in Sri Lanka right now, I would be in serious trouble because the lights aren't on, the internet's not working. Fortunately, although I am concerned about the Philippines is a military junta, they've got earthquakes. When I was there in 2019 before COVID, I was driving through an area and I could not believe the poverty. And it struck me that there's no changing a country or a city of that size. 12 million people living on top of one another. I was walking across some lights. I thought, oh geez, it's foggy. It wasn't fog, it was smog. And people are living in that every day. So be very thankful that we are on the shore, that where we live is absolutely the tops of where it gets to. Nonetheless, I was able to be introduced to the company that I use for my outsourcing by my #1 competitor. And that might seem counterproductive, but my #1 competitor and I talk on the phone at least once every 2 months. He's tried to buy me a couple of times. I don't think he can afford me. I certainly wouldn't want to work for him. But there's a level of respect there. So don't be afraid of your competition, because actually he was the one that gave me the introduction to be able to lower my costs. Immediately I was able to lower them down. That gives me a competitive advantage, because not only is my company quite profitable, but it means that I can keep those costs low by having that overseas. So the last one I'll say is make sure you pay yourself, don't work for free. So that said, I did that for the first 4 years. My wife had to. My industry was new. If you've got an existing industry, it's a lot easier to get ahead. You want to have an edge, a brand. Doesn't matter if you're selling the same thing as someone else. If you've got a better brand than them, you'll sell more of your product. But when I speak to business owners, I'll often hear from them that they don't pay themselves much, and often they're earning less than minimum wage. Not always, but they won't be earning as much. I think it's important that you get to a certain point where you are investing in yourself, you are investing in your company, but you are also doing that for you to get ahead. And so even a small level of money should be paid to you personally for your time. If you get into that habit early, that you're always getting paid, you're at least getting something. Right? I think it's really important because there are a lot of business owners that I speak to and they're barely getting by and they employ 10 people. And I'm looking there going, you're giving 10 other people more than what you've got. I couldn't get a mortgage. My employees could get mortgages and I'm the one paying them. Bank said, you're a risk, we won't give you a mortgage. I'm like, if there was going to be a risk, it would be the people that are paid below me. You think I'm going to give up my money before I give up their money? So the banks do some weird stuff. So if you pay yourself, they're quite happy, right? So the initial product that I put together in 2010 was ownership of the Google accounts. This is really important. You own everything that you do digitally, right? If you're going to work with someone else and they're going to do it for you, make sure that you have the keys. You wouldn't give someone else the keys to your car and say, I own it. So why would you do that with any of a digital stack, right? So that was one of the things that was quite different. Even to this day, many business owners in the market don't own their website. I heard a thing on the radio last night about one of the large Maori authorities. They had a breakup with their director and they can't get access to their website. And it's so basic, but it's not something that is often done. So I made sure that that basic was taken care of. I covered most of the Google marketing products. So from my perspective, Google has products for everything. You've got to be really clear about what your niche is. So I bundled them down to the business products and commoditized that. People would just sell Google ads. I said, no, well, what I need is to have, obviously, the Google account, but then analytics, search console, Google My Business, you can see all these, and then put that into a package, which I called a basic online WOF. So I focused on giving the leading edge in the innovation, but I also focused on those training modules and videos that I said. So there was ancillary services that went with the product, right? So it wasn't just the thing. I guess if you're selling t-shirts, that's good, but if you have a story that goes with it or a comic or something, it's just extra stuff. Or if it's the fishing supplies, you know, there could be something that gets brought into it from that perspective that you could give as a fish sizing guide or something along those lines. It's something that will stick on the boat, but it has your brand there. So giving something more on top of the product is going to give you some value. So you've got a simple Google ad campaign. Again, I said before, focus on conversions, map listing for the SEO, and a focus on understanding reporting. So this was 12 years ago. Most of those things are what we see here, and this is what we're going to discuss. Bearing in mind, I've got 40 minutes. I'll wrap through them. Configure Tag Manager. That's a technical product that allows you to do things on the website that is unseen. Configure Universe and Analytics. This is giving you the insight into how people behave on your website. There's a new thing called GA4, which is the new standard that's coming through. A lot of that's about machine learning. Search Console verification, so that's SEO. I'm sure you've all heard of SEO by now, what that entails. A display campaign for Google Ads, a Data Studio dashboard for reporting. One of my senior managers will do a strategic review, and then we'll go into a project plan. So the purpose of the data health kit sets them up. For them, for us, it's the last one. It's the project plan. It's the recurring revenue. And if you can get recurring revenue on a monthly basis, and you're building on top the whole time, it's a heck of a lot easier than selling one product at a time. Right? So then, what you get out of it is a modern analytical tech stack with ad placement, machine learning, a Google ad campaign for brand awareness, which you got 12 years ago, basic SEO analysis, which you got 12 years ago, and a report. The report's live now. Back in the day, I actually had to do it in Creative Suite InDesign. No one would read them, and it was the largest part of the product. The job took me 8 hours. It took me 4 hours to do the report. No one read the report. So be careful about where you're putting your energy and understanding of your product, where the value lies. So websites, do you need one? Well, yes, you do. absolutely. You can get one. Wix, Squarespace, always own your domain name and try to secure a .com if possible. Okay, so when I was saying before about the website's not having ownership, your name, domain registered, you're the admin person, have your phone number, have your email address. Domains cost what, $30, $40. As I said, if you can get the .com, that's better. So the hosted solutions clip the ticket. So that's a Shopify or a Squarespace. They'll charge a monthly fee, but it's easily configurable. They'll also charge a fee on a merchant. So if you've got a basic plan, they're going to charge you 3% for the transaction. Whereas if you own your own, like a WordPress, and you have your own facility through that, you don't have to pay that 3%. So it's a trade-off. When you're starting out, you can definitely go a Shopify website because it's easy to get started, it's easy to get it up off the ground. But if you're going to start doing some heavy transactions and you're getting up 10, 20,000 per month, all of a sudden that fee that you're charging is eroding your margin. You might find that you could save yourself, you can take this next 6 months of that fee, invest it into a website which you own. After that 6 months, you're immediately in a better position fiscally. So just understanding the trade-off of those sorts of things. Make sure the site's secure, so you can get a free secure site, or you can get a paid one for e-commerce. You're going to need a paid secure certificate. Again, a hosted solution will give that to you, whereas if you're doing it yourself, you're going to need to buy a 256 encryption. The last thing you want is for your credit cards to be hacked, because that'll be the end of your business. The cost to you will just blow you out of the water. The banks are pretty good. They investigate the sites and make sure that you are complying with their regulations. So content isn't just writing, making sure you include photos and videos too. Video content is by far and away the biggest thing that you can do. So we build in either WordPress or Shopify. These two platforms are world leading. You can pretty much cover off 90% of the market by doing that. Most people already have those two sites. Always include structured data. This is the way bots index websites in the modern era. So structured data is an old databasing term, schema. So on your page, you'll have written content, which is subjective. You say that you're amazing, but I say that I'm amazing. How does Google know that you or I are amazing? If you start tagging it and saying, I am amazing, and you conform to their standards, Google goes, oh, this guy's amazing. More likely it's going to be a box size, the dimensions. Like those are immutable facts. The speed of the computer is a fact. You can tag it, so this is the video. These things, when indexing takes place, when the bot comes and indexes it, when it's just the written word and it's subjective, it doesn't care. If you've tagged it to say this is a video, when someone searches for Wonks, it's going to show that video associated to Wonks. Okay, so when building your website, really look at building structured data behind it. Say this is that, and that's a technical behind the scenes thing. Content is king, never stop adding content. In first lockdown, we lost 60% of our business overnight, and so I put my team to work. We continued to pay our staff. Luckily, we rebounded after 3 months back to 100% to where we had been, but in that intervening period, I got my staff to get into the habit of producing content, more of those training videos, more of that information, and the indexing that we went from before to where we went sort of 3-4 months later was massive. Like the jump in terms of traffic to our site was massive. We get a lot of international people, so that's tire kickers, but if you've got a simple export-led thing, then that's all good. One final thing is make sure your forms work, that your cart works, and always reply to inquiries and sales in a timely fashion. There are large corporates where we've spoken to them. Where does the form go? Oh, that goes to Sally at reception. What does Sally at reception do? She deletes the emails that come in. Good work, Sally. Legitimately, $100 million business they were doing that. Last week I had a conversation, they're a multi-billion dollar business internationally. Exact same thing. Their system generates the email, the lady just deletes the email. And they wondered how she was able to get through all these emails in 8 seconds, because she was deleting them. So probably a side thing of that is if you've delegated down someone to do that job for you, and it's an important job, make sure it's being done. Don't just let that person do it for you and expect that it's being done. When you're the boss, you've got to be in charge of all of it. So database, own yours. One of the things that the big tech giants have done very well is making it easy
for you to use their platforms, but they have removed the connection between you and the client. And increasingly what we're seeing is that the costs for digital advertising are massive. There was a 30% jump in the last year alone because of COVID. Everyone started advertising online, right? And so those auction rates go up. Whereas if you have your own database and you're tracking them, you know the email address, you know the phone number, you know the name of that individual, you can have a direct relationship with that individual. And if you start to match how often they purchase the product, then you can start to see, well, okay, they put 3 things in their shopping cart. They didn't buy the 3rd thing. If you know that, you can then advertise them the 3rd thing next month, the month after. Why didn't they buy it this month? They just didn't have enough discretionary income. But you know that they looked at that 3rd thing, so you should sell them the 3rd thing. All the people in the world that you want to sell to, it's the people that put something in their shopping cart but did not complete it, or the people that submitted the form but were not able to complete at the time. So talking to those people is the number one thing that you can do, and recording that information is key. So yeah, I definitely think that building client IDs is critical, and as I said, matching the e-commerce records. So that one is, even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, right? An Excel spreadsheet you can put into MailChimp, you can import it into most of the other platforms. Google Analytics, track. So you get demographic reporting, you get conversion data, you have to compile that, you have to use that through the tag manager. They're just about to release something called GA4. So both Facebook and Google, there's really no other player. Twitter's a news product, they don't advertise really in New Zealand. TikTok's trying, but you really can't advertise in New Zealand much. Instagram's owned by Facebook, so you use the business manager to advertise on Instagram anyway. YouTube's owned by Google, so that's part of the Google network. A couple of years ago, Facebook would tell someone, a marketer, what you would eat for lunch, how much money you had in your bank, and whether or not you were dating someone. Obviously, that's your information and should not be shared with a marketer, but Facebook didn't care, and so they gave it all away. Cambridge Analytica a couple of years ago was a marketing company that they stole the information. Facebook originally sold it to them and then said, please delete it. Oh yeah, they're going to do that. And so, exactly. So Congress came in and removed a lot of the features and benefits that were available there. Google has way better PR. Google, I'm sure you know cookies have been deprecated. Cookies are over. So the day after cookies were over, Google released this thing called a custom intent audience list, which had way more information about what your behaviours were online and had way better targeting. And so did they actually change any of their privacy settings? No. What they're doing with the GA4 is they're making it harder for you to advertise online, because you've got to configure so many more things, which again, if we go back, I can't stress it enough, have the direct relationship with your customers. Don't rely on the tech companies. Talk to them. Pick up the phone. Send them letters. Send them emails. That's the way to do it. Because these guys are getting tricky. And it's also being impacted on because of the EU. There's the GDPR, which is some regulations that came out a couple of years ago. In Austria, you're not even allowed to use Google Analytics. The Europeans are pretty careful about their privacy. In America, free for all, do what you want. So a lot of the reactionary things that are happening to these platforms is driven by the fact that they eroded all the privacy from the get-go, and now they're having to be pushed back by the regulators. But the regulators, last year, the year before, Congress were talking to Mark Zuckerberg, and the guy basically said, how do you reboot your computer? Well, what's that got to do with a social media platform? One's a piece of hardware, the other's a networking app. That's how dumb these people are. They're the ones that are making the decisions, right? And then obviously there's a lot of lobbying that's going on. A lot of billions of dollars are being shoveled to make sure that Google and Facebook can continue to advertise. But over the years, this is going to become more complex and more difficult. So you can get channel data, organic, typical ranking. You'll normally get about 30% of your traffic would be organic traffic. Now that's indexed off the back of the content, written content you have on your site. Probably about 30% is going to be direct, people actually typing in your email address or a link from another website or a link from an email signature. Then you'll get paid advertising, maybe 25% of that if you've got a good sort of market going on. And then you'll have a range of different referral channels. Typically that's mostly going to be spam. So you've got that breakdown in terms of what the channel data is doing, and you want to link that back to conversion. Because if you've got paid advertising and that's 25%, but generates 80% of your revenue or 85% of your leads, you want to make sure that you're emphasising that. It's not 100 users that came to the site, 25 came from paid, 40 came from organic, whichever else. Market segmentation and insights, really useful again. Every person that comes to your website, Google has around 5,000 data points below each of us throughout your browsing behaviour. In most cases, you will have logged in at some point and created an account. Even if you haven't logged in and created an account, what's happening is when you go to Trade Me and you look at a fishing rod, and then you go to the warehouse and you look at a shaver, it typically knows that you're a man. And I'm talking about that over the 5,000 data points across all of the browsing behaviour that you're doing. So they can still gauge if you're a man or a woman, what age category you're in. They even know, even though I don't know the setting is particularly strong from a targeting perspective, they know your income bracket. It's one of the pieces that we can use to target is what income bracket you are in. Well, how does Google get that information? They don't tell us, but you can get that they know it, right? Because it comes back to market segmentation and insights, comes back to conversion data. What have you got a website for? To sell things, to get your brand out there, to get leads, right? Remember at all times, you must be looking at what the business objective your website is doing. Don't just have a website for having a website, have a performance website. So that allows you to gauge the interest in your products and services. You can see what pages are being used. With goal conversions and e-commerce metrics, you can create a cost per lead calculation. So if you spent $300 on ads and you got 10 leads, you're paying $30 per lead. Or if you've got, you spent $1,000 on ads, you made $10,000 in revenue, it's a 10 to 1 ROAS, right? So that's the sort of calculation. If you're getting a negative ROAS, you're not making any money. If you're spending $300 to get one lead and you're selling a product for $200, it's not really a very good viable product for you, right? $5,000 quote for a lawn restoration, and you're paying $30 per lead, spend more money on the ads. But you need to know what that calculation looks like based upon the conversion data, right? So you've got to have these things connected together. And then you can segment the data for insights to the audience. Again, it's really important from a targeting perspective. If you know this is the audience that makes you the money, create an audience list, put that into, when we get to Google Ads, put it into Google Ads, and then you can serve to people that look like that audience. It's a lookalike audience in Facebook. Google My Business, so all of you should go and have a Google My Business listing after today. It's free. You can get it sent, the PIN needs to be verified to your address, but once it's verified to your address, you can anonymize to a service area. Immediately, even if you don't have a website, you immediately have brand presence on Google, right? And then, because you're all different, I didn't give this recommendation, so it's going to be cut out of the video. Go and give each other a 5-star review. And then all of a sudden, you've got a couple of 5-star reviews, right? Don't get your parents to do it because they've got the same last name as you. And it does look a little bit silly. You want legitimate 5-star reviews. So the map listing is really good. You can honestly pin your business. Post different types of content. So if you've got an event coming up, someone spoke about having events. Yep, so that's really useful. Or you can post your products, call to actions. It's really good to showcase your business to potential customers. Typically you get 4 times, people ignore these things, they don't even care about them. You get 4 times as much traffic to a listing than you ever get to your website. Right? So people all look at Google Analytics and go, okay, well that's my website's the key thing. But people don't even want to go to your website. They want to see the contact details on Google. Do you think that Google wants them to come to your website? Because, well, they don't at all. They want you to pay to get to the website, but if they can keep you on their platform, they will keep you on their platform. They don't want you going outside of the ecosystem. You go outside of the ecosystem, all of a sudden they don't know what you're doing. They want to know what you're doing at all times. So if they can erode the need for you to have a website, they think that they're in a better place. You should always have a website, just like you should always have that direct connection to your clients. You can get the reviews. Reviews works doubly well. Obviously someone sees a review and they go, oh, that company's got, we've got 44 5-star reviews. It's really difficult to keep a 5-star review. One of these days someone will give us a negative one, we'll break it down to 4.9, but as long as it doesn't happen. So the person sees it, but then the machine learning, it goes, okay, if you've said your category is retail, right?
clothing manufacturer or something along those lines, when someone looks for that and you've got 15 5-star reviews, it's going to rank you higher than the mum and pop shop who's only got 2 5-star reviews. So she doesn't care, right? She's not done it. He doesn't care, they haven't done anything. You're going to rank higher. So there's doubly well. People see it, machine sees it. Allows you to post messages to your audience, and it's great for lead generation. So then there's Google Ads. So Google Ads allows you to harness the largest advertising network and grow leads and sales. I would say that probably 90% of our clients have success with Google Ads. There's always going to be 10% that don't. 10% that don't, maybe the product's not the right product. Maybe the market isn't online, it's more of a B2B type product and that's more for networking. Or it might be that their budgets are too low. But if you can get your targeting right, you have that back-end conversion data correct, and you get the right budget and the right inventory, the right message, you should be able to generate leads. And you should be able to get a good return. As long as you're focused on that, I definitely think that you can get there. So, search is your #1 lead generator. That's on the search engine, right? People do a search for their product. There's a huge amount of intent when someone's doing a search for your product that they want to purchase it. Depends down the funnel. TV is really broad. Sony Bravia 36-inch, really tight, right? The likelihood of them, when someone does that search to buy your product, is quite high. You want to make sure you've got budget for that particular term, whereas TV could mean anything. Someone might be advertising for it. It might be a student doing a research paper at university, right? So why would you want to advertise there? So just getting that targeting is really clear. Display. Display is that product that I said to you when they got rid of cookies. All of a sudden, display never used to monetize. Now display monetizes because we link it. When someone does a search in the last 7 days on Google, then we can target that person with ads on display. You can have video ads, text ads, or display ads, image ads. YouTube again, really good for brand. It's very disruptive to traditional TVCs. You can have 6-second non-skippables, 15-second skippables, right up to a 90-second. Anything longer than that is no one's really going to watch a 90-second one after they skip. I recommend if you're going to do a video ad and you've got 5 seconds, you should probably just have an arrow that points to the skip button and then just skip this ad. No one cares about this ad. Because I guarantee that everyone's going to watch the last 10 seconds of the ad because you've acknowledged what platform you're advertising on, and people are like, oh, because all of the other ads are bland, here is my thing, skip. You know, no one wants to watch that. So be aware of the inventory and where you're placing it. Shopping ads, so anyone who's obviously got e-commerce, shopping ads, you need to have a merchant facility on the website in order to be eligible. But the thing with the shopping ad is a thing called a merchant center. You pull in your product feed from your website, and that will give you organic listing as well. So you can use the merchant center to advertise your products through shopping. You can use the merchant center to advertise organically. So that's really powerful. You can build audience lists. You can either build a remarketing ad. Let's say this month, 500 people come to our website. We can then serve our ads to those 500 people for the next year and a half. So we're keeping our brand message in front of them over the course of the next year and a half, right? Or we could create an audience list. As I said, the last 7 days people have searched for Google ads. We know they're in market, we serve them our ads, right? So building those audience lists is critical. Setting daily budgets that fit your needs really easily. Can be connected with analytics to integrate machine learning. If you're doing manual bid adjustments now, you're a dinosaur, right? If I do a manual bid adjustment, the machine will make that adjustment for me and every other person that makes the adjustment on the day. So you really want to make sure that if you're using Google Ads, you're getting your attribution settings. You actually have to get into the settings, link it to your analytics, and then set it. So typically I'd recommend that you go for a position-based attribution. Easy campaigns, but always be wary. Google will make things super easy for you, and you'll go click, 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 and then you'll look at the conversions and there won't be any because they're just taking the money. If Google releases a new announcement with Google Ads, you should invert whatever they said to you and you'll probably get the true answer of what's going on. I remember they released this thing called enhanced text ads about 6 years ago, and they gave 10 bullet points about why it was the most amazing thing ever. And they gave a couple of things to advertisers that you otherwise wanted. 2 quarters later, it was the highest share price and the highest profitability that Google had ever made.
Because what they didn't say in their awesome 10 features that they released, they forced bidding on mobile devices. And so all of a sudden, every single account globally, it's the only time they've ever done it, every single account globally was all of a sudden bidding on a mobile device. And where was most of the advertising going? Now it was going on a mobile device. Did it connect to conversions? No. Should have I bought shares in Google? Yes. So be careful when the big platforms release these newfangled things that you should be doing, because it's probably not in your best interest. Again, focus on the conversions. And you can build brand really easily. That's specifically what I said before. So Google Search Console, SEO. I'm not a big fan of SEO. I think that people that sell that service typically don't know what they're doing. At $160 billion turnover last year, does anyone think that Google wants you to rank for free on their website? Right? They don't. They don't. And they have thousands of people whose job it is to make sure that you're not gaming the system. Use a good platform, Shopify, WordPress, Squarespace. Add the content, make sure you've got structured data, make sure you've got a Google My Business listing. Google will like all those things because you're ticking all the boxes. Again, make sure that you use Search Console because it'll tell you how many backlinks you've got. So the more backlinks you've got, the better. So there'll be a whole bunch of business directories in Auckland. Sign your website up to that and get backlinks. Even a yellow backlink is better than no backlink. The business associations, they'll let you list on those directory sites for free. So find directory sites, put your website, that'll help the ranking. You can see any page errors, resolve penalties. But the thing that you want to see is the search queries. So when you write something, you want to make sure that if you're doing Google Ads, you don't say Google Advertising. Like if I was to have the page title as Google Ads, the meta description needs to be Google Ads, the H tag needs to be Google Ads, and the body text needs to be Google Ads. I can't say in the page title Google Advertising and then the description we're good at Google Ads, because Google doesn't see the different phrasing, it sees the words together. So if you want to rank for your brand or your product, your trade-based term, make sure that you use the same words next to one another in all of the key pieces. Most of these products, Shopify or WordPress, will have SEO modules, which will allow you to plug it in and they'll give you a guide as to how successful you've been. So definitely look at the clicks and impressions, the search queries that you've got ranking, and then you can gain insights to the type of content. So social media, be careful, as I said earlier. Well, I will say this, we've got 300 clients on book. Virtually none of them make money from social media, right? Where the disconnect comes from is that almost everyone has a social media account, and so business owners will then go, well, I've got social media, so therefore my business should be on social media. But when we look at the conversion data, we just do not see that loop being closed. As I said before, the intention on someone looking for a Sony Bravia 36-inch TV is quite high. Did someone go to Facebook to get served the ad second for a TV? Where's the intention in that? There is none, right? Like you're just being served ads. And I'm sure you'll see yourself, there'll be advertising to you that is for international stuff. That's how bad the targeting is. So it's not to say there's always an exception to the rule, right? And definitely having a page that's free for your own content, for organic and putting out content is important. From a content perspective, I'd say that content should be its own standalone thing, so that's video, images, or the written word. Then you push it to your channels, right? So you want to make sure, as I've said here, so Facebook is for mass appeal, LinkedIn is for B2B, professional networking, Twitter is for news and PR, Instagram for brand and e-commerce, Snapchat for events, Gen X, TikTok for videography and brand placement, and YouTube for building an audience and how-tos, those sorts of things that you want to put up there. But social can be hard to track attribution on. So if you're logged into a Facebook tab, you've got 10 browsing windows open, and you go to Google, you go to buy that Sony Bravia TV, you go to Noel Lemming, you buy the TV, you've done that all through Google search, Facebook will go, hey, my tab was open, so that's actually my conversion. It's like, that wasn't your conversion at all, it just happened to be open at the same time. But that's how that's how Facebook works. It's a very, attribution on Facebook is very dodgy. And I think when you look at it compared to Google, like a shopping ad, you can track that revenue really clearly. You spent $1, you made 10 to 1 easy.
spent 300, had 10 leads, $30 a lead, easy, right? So those calculations can be made really clearly. Facebook isn't quite like that, and I said it really comes down to the intention. Why are they on the platform? They're looking at someone's photos on Instagram. Again, they're looking at photos. Might help the brand if you're scrolling down, you see a Sony TV, but again, that would be top of funnel, so I'm just getting that brand awareness out there. I want the search ad really clearly for the particular actual product. And then keep your content fresh. So I might mention this somewhere else, but the way that I do it is if you've got a content calendar and you've got 4 pieces of content that you produce in a month, on one week, have it go on one platform, the next week on a different platform. Don't post the same piece of content to all of the platforms at the same time, because if you've got followers on multiple platforms, they're just seeing that you're regurgitating it. Whereas if you create that content calendar, you can post it, the same content can be posted next month on YouTube that you posted on Facebook today. You just have to have a bit of a strategy about how you're deploying that information out there. So it makes it appear that you're a lot larger than what you truly are. So e-commerce, definitely track the metrics and don't necessarily trust the Shopify. Like Shopify will give you the information in the platform, like it'll tell you how many products you've sold, the average order value, what the SKUs are, those sorts of things, and that's really relevant information. But if you plug the information into Google Analytics, that way you can use the machine learning. That way you can link the demographic information. You can link a whole bunch of information that Google has that Shopify doesn't. So that's really key. And as you get more advanced, you can actually put together, most of it, all your browsing behavior on a website has just got a user ID. But if you start to track client IDs, you can actually match back. I was talking about this before. They put 3 things in their cart, 2 of which they purchase, 1 of which they don't. If you've got the client ID and you know that that's Johnny, and you know that Johnny didn't buy the 3rd thing, you can then serve Johnny a cart abandonment, or you can serve Johnny something else. But you need the metrics being pushed into analytics in order to get the value, because Shopify is only showing you what they do on your site, whereas Google knows everything that they were doing. And again, though it's anonymized, you can use that for ad placement. So it helps to grow organic traffic using SEO practices. As I said, that's your merchant, making sure that you've got your product feed correct. You've got what's called taxonomy. So whatever your product is, it's got to fit into the ratio of whatever Google says your product line is, making sure that you've got those things correct. You just can't invent your own product line. And you want to link the database to the sales made by the clients. Videography, telling a story. You've all got phones. I'm a believer in just getting content out there, and you can get it polished. You might have your 15-second super video that's your animated video. I used a Ukrainian chap off Upwork. He's not so easy to get in touch with these days, as you might imagine. It was pretty good. $100 US, and he would do me an animated video of my 30-second radio ads, and they were through the roof. The engagement of those were through the roof. You try to get that animated ad done here, you're talking about $3,000. So Upwork is your friend, Fiverr is your friend in order to get things done reasonably quickly. There's a trade-off between the professionalism, but as I said, even I use Upwork. My entire development team, I've got 2 full-time developers, I found on Upwork to start with. They did a $100 job for me. Now I'm doing them over $150,000. So don't be afraid of using those low-cost bases to get ahead, certainly from a videography perspective. Even if you record it, and then they just do some editing, or if you just do some light editing, so you've got a watermark, maybe a pre-roll and a post-roll, just to give it a little extra bit of professionalism. But playlists are good, like I said, how-to guides, so you have a marketing playlist, you'll have a how-to guide playlist, maybe you have a about us playlist. That just gets content out there, gets volume out there. There's analytics in the back of it too, and then you can start to put together advertising schedules. So as I said, you can really target it in terms of who you're talking to, the audiences you're talking to. And if you make funky and cool videos, people will engage with those, right? Again, it's just another brand touch point that helps. So yeah, use native uploads as well. So if you've got a YouTube video, don't just post that on Facebook. Use Facebook's video upload function to place the video, because Facebook would prefer that. They'll push down a YouTube link over their own native videos. So upload it in every area that you can, just manage it effectively. And I said cheap can work too, build your own authentic audience. And if people are engaged, they're engaged, right? What it comes down to is actually having the conversation. There are tens of thousands of New Zealand businesses
that spend $5,000 on a 90-second video and it sits on their homepage and it never gets watched. Whereas if you were to have 6 15-second videos, it's going to have that much more impact because you're actually telling a story over a period of time. There's a bit more to it than just that one static video. So you can produce it, the more you can, the better off you'll be. So Google Data Studio reporting allows you to put multiple Google products in one, share metrics with anyone, use advanced segmentation so you can actually do other things and start to get more information than what you otherwise get out of analytics. It's live data which updates each day. You can integrate third-party APIs. For me, this was really useful, as I said, of an 8-hour product. It took me 4 hours to do the reporting. It's a 30-minute connection to the Google products now. And people actually use it because there's live information, it's relevant information. So that's pretty much it. I wrapped up a wee bit quickly at the end there, but we've got plenty of time to talk. If you do have questions after this that you're too shy to ask or you want to dwell on it, think on it later, you can email me, and to the people that aren't here today, they can do the same thing. I'm more than happy to help. Do people have questions?
Questions, where to start? I know some of you are already discussing it because I've heard you talking about it, and I know others are probably sitting there going, what the hell has just happened?
I often get that. That's like I said, it's off the cuff.
But, you know, so it is, you know, I've heard you talking about things, and I know I learned a huge amount about that I didn't know already, but also I think it's fitting in quite nicely with some of the other things you've learned around telling story and how to live that content, and it is quite complementary to what you've been told so far. So I'm sure everyone will have taken something from it. Has anyone got any questions at this stage? Any words or terms that you didn't understand? Jeff can give you a quick, because don't come and ask me, I'm still not an expert. Was there a term or content you didn't understand while we've got Jeff? Nothing.
So Upwork is there because the community private?
Yeah. I prefer to use Upwork. I just find it easier. So I use Upwork for 3 things at the moment. Well, my developers I have a direct relationship with now, and they're amazing. But I have, for my board meeting minutes, so I record our board meeting, and then they just transcribe the minutes, and that's like $25 a month, which is fantastic. And then the other thing is, though I have graphic design abilities internally, when I want a logo designed, I just go to a chap that I've got. So I think he's in Pakistan, and the other chap is in Estonia. And then again, my animator was in the Ukraine. So definitely recommend that. And they said $100 versus $3,000. You know, like it's common sense. And the thing is that it's the intellectual property that you're building. That's what I sell. I sell a product. Anyone can get Google Ads. You can do Google Ads yourself. When my company does it, you get value, right? And you're actually getting the returns. We've got clients that will spend $10,000 a month and are making $250,000 a month. That's a pretty good return for them, right? They've got to take the cost of sale out of that, of course. They've got our fees and the like, but it's still a high-performing return that they're getting. So who here has a website? Right, it's not many. Though I think for the long term for your businesses, you must have a domain name and you must have a website. As I said, the #1 recommendation, go to Google My Business, create a listing for your business, get the postcard sent to your house, and then go in there and find out, and if you can't and someone needs to email me and ask, you can anonymise, so it's no longer at your house, and it shows that you're New Zealand-wide or Auckland region-wide, and immediately your brand is now on Google, right? It's the #1 takeaway that I give you today, because it's free, you can start posting, you can put up product images, that's really useful.
Bit of homework, we'll check in tomorrow. I know you're busy doing business plans and things, but otherwise you'll forget. How long would it take, Jeff? How long was that?
So to create the listing is probably going to take you about 15 minutes, but it'll take 4 weeks for the postcard to arrive.
Yeah.
So the sooner you do that, the better off you're going to be.
So probably 15 minutes well spent. You've done it already. Anyone else done it already?
Is that the one where it like sends you like a 4-digit code or whatever
It sends a code, but you've got to get it's a postcard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Small piece of homework. and then get, you know, like you said, get each other perhaps to review it.
What's the best way to market your business if you're generalising like startup firms?
So I definitely think that it's a two-step approach. Like you want to get as much of an organic presence as you possibly can, so that's Google My Business and lots of content. But I guess your real question is how to make money, right? Yeah. So is it e-commerce or product, like a service?
Product. Service.
So it's a service. So you want leads. Well, if it's a product and you're able to sell it through your website, then you want a shopping ad. If it's going to be an inquiry that you're looking for, it's going to be a search ad.
So how would you get views to convert into your website?
So what's the term that you would most want to be found on?
JDM card.
That's your brand term, that's your name of your business, but in terms of Japanese import, right?
Yeah.
Yep, so let's look like second-hand Japanese imports or something along those lines. That term, you would buy the keyword for that term, and then when someone searches that, your ad will show up. And then they'll go through to the website, and then you'll have the vehicles that you've got available. That's the mechanism. So you've got to have the search term correct, and then through there.
What's the cost of that?
So it's an auction. It depends on how many people are competing in that auction. But a tip, I would prefer to not look at the cost per click and instead look at the cost per acquisition or cost per lead. You can get $600 of ad credit free. You do need to match that with $600 of your own ad spend, and then it'll give you $1,200 in total, and that's quite useful. I would stay away from social media. You could do it as an organic brand perspective, but I'd stay away from using Facebook ads personally. If you're going to do it, I'd use Google again because the intent is there. People are searching for that. Yeah.
Questions? Anything else?
No, as I said, feel free to email me once you actually get into it. I tried to give you a bit of a background into the business side of things. As I said, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's actually pretty bloody difficult, and there's a lot of self-deprecating thinking that goes on behind it, and that's where your support structures and your friends are important. And that's what I was saying about that mental visualization. Back yourself. Back yourself. That's the number one thing. You can do it. Like, what's stopping you from doing it? Honestly, a lot of the time it's in your own head. It's, you know what, I'm going to sleep in today. Oh, I'd rather play PlayStation tonight. You know, the number of hours that I've spent at my office working till midnight, doing 90-hour weeks. And people are like, how, you're successful. No, I work 90-hour weeks. And when I do those sorts of long stretches, a couple of months at a time where I'm doing those big weeks, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I just sit in front of my computer, start working it through, that product development, I start working it through. And then at the end, I've got something tangible to show for it. During the day, it's, please buy my product. I'm dealing with this HR issue, staff members not showing up on time or something. Like, that's all just work stuff. You have to do the work stuff. It's in your own time that you have to put in the hard yards. But if you do and you back yourself, you can get ahead. And there's a lot of support mechanisms. I'm prepared to help you if you want from the marketing perspective. I'm sure the school is willing to help you. The government organisations are willing to help you. So there's plenty of people that are willing to do it. You just got to put your hand out and go, hey, I'm here. Can you give me a hand?
We're going to do some more work next term on more business assistance, because obviously a lot of business assistance stuff that you've learned about this year has been from a financial perspective. Obviously from Bentown Snowball Effect and from other people that have spoken to you. We're going to do a fair bit of work on NZT, New Zealand Trade Enterprise. Okay, so there's still a lot to come. And I would imagine as things really start to take shape next term, as you start to really think about launching and what you're putting into your marketing plans, a lot of this stuff will come in handy, and I'm sure Jeff will be on hand. It's quite good timing actually. A massive thank you from me, Jeff. I've been looking forward to this session since I met with you last year, after the connection between you and Mr. Russell, and then I messaged you on LinkedIn and you phoned me straight away, and I was like, I'm doing this thing, I have no idea about this, can you help? And he was more than happy to. I had 90 minutes with Jeff last year. So I learned a lot. I knew this would be a hugely informative session, and I hope you guys all have as well. So I'll leave Nandi to take the floor now. So it's yours. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff, on behalf of all of Openground. I think that we've all taken something from your wise words and your extensive knowledge, so thank you. Awesome.
Thanks for listening, boys. Appreciate it. Can I give one last piece of advice as well? Especially when you're young, no one took me seriously, right? This is why I wear this. I wear a three-piece suit. You can always dress down. I can take off my cufflinks. I always wear French cuffs as well. I don't wear shirts, they're going out of fashion. I can take off my tie, and all of a sudden, I'm a lot more casual, right? You can't do that if you're wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And even though I probably look like a total dick in meetings with my fresh face, if I shave, I look like I'm the same age as you guys. I kid you not, which works for me sometimes. But if you can elevate your dress and the way you look, credibility goes through the roof. And even though your mates give you grief about it, and they probably will, difference is you're getting that success ahead of the game. And so that's why I still to this day do that. In fact, no one wears a tie. You guys do. Your school makes you, but in the business world, no one wears a tie anymore. You wear a tie, people step up and take notice. So that would just be another piece of advice that I give you. Dress for success. It's very empowering to look good, feel good.
Nice. Excellent. That's good.